So right now in today's class, I will be solving October-November 2023 paper 2, this papers which we have recently completed. The purpose of this is to share with you that how you are going to reply to the questions that you will be having in your exams. So this paper is of 1 hour 45 minutes, October-November 2023 P2. So initially when I start the paper, I have the first question right here that states that you need to tick one box to complete the sentence. The sentence right here states that verification is used to make sure that a value is entered. Now I am giving four choices. Has not changed during the input, is an integer, is correct, is not a string. So verification is always used to make sure that the value entered has not changed during this input. This is verification. And validation was making sure that if your data is sensible or not. So the rest of them are not correct. I'm going to take the first one, right? That's
Yes.
basically the basic definition of your verification. Then I have right here is question number two. Question number two states that there is a type of validation check. The name of that validation check is length check. Another type of validation check is used to make sure that any date entered is in this format style, which means that date DD means date, MM means month, YYY means year. State the type of validation check used. Now, we have already discussed quite a lot of validation techniques in our class, and since I want the data to be in this specific format, so this is only and only going to be a format check because I am going to check the data against it. Do you have any queries till here?
No, sir.
Now to the B part says that give one example of normal test data and one example of abnormal test data you should use to make sure the check in part A is working properly or not. So the check in part A, what I'm referring to is that the data should be in this format, and to keep in this format, I am using a format check. Now, I discussed with you in chapter number 7 that just after you complete a program, you also need to have some sensible data to test it, right? Like either if it is working or not. So, for example, if the date is second, if the month is sixth, and if the year is 2022, so this means that this is valid. So for checking it, I need a normal data. So I can write that a normal data could either be write 36 or 1998. And what is the reason that why should this data will be accepted? So I'm going to write in reason because the date is written in the correct format. That means that it is written in correct format. For your abnormal one now, I can write here any data that should not be accepted. Like this is the format. So if I write here 30 January 1997, so this is going to create an error because I need to write the month in integer or whole number. So this can be write like for example 30 January 1998 or anything as well. Like you can also write like 35 equals to Feb equals to 1919 right like this. This is basically wrong data. This is abnormal data. This is not acceptable. So you are going to write in your reasons that uh, this is not in correct format. This is not in correct format. This is not in correct format and rejected. Rejected because it is not in correct format. Now the C part says that describe how a length check could be used with the data entered. So when it comes to a length check, I gave you an example of the passwords, right? Like for example, when we enter the password, it asks us to have some certain length that could either be up to 8 characters and 10 characters. And if the length is not matched, that means that password is not going to be entered. So I can write here that when it comes to a length check, you also need to understand that this is for 2 marks. So I need to write here for 2 marks. This was for 4 marks. That means 1 mark for normal, 1 mark for reason, 1 mark for abnormal, and 1 mark for a reason. Right here, I'm going to write that length check checks that there are total 10 characters. Now, you also need to understand that they are asking that how this length check could be used with the date entered. So if I count with you the initials of the date, you can see that it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So altogether, they are being 10 characters. And the question says that how a length check can make sure that the date entered is correct. So I can write here that length
सर
check.
सर
Yes.
2 मिनट में मुझे काम है, मैं आ जाऊँ?
जी जी, sure, sure. If the date is too long or too short, it will be rejected. That means if it is not in the certain length. Any questions still here?
नो सर.
Now I'm moving on to the third question of this. Question number 3 says that I have 4 pseudocode statements and 5 pseudocode uses are shown. Now I need to draw one line to link each pseudocode statement to the most appropriate of the pseudocode use. Not all pseudocode uses will be required. So I have some pseudocode statements right here, and I have some uses of pseudocode right here. They are counting, finding an average, totaling, using a conditional statement, using a procedure. I need to identify which pseudocode statement matches to the which pseudocode use. For example, first one is counting. So I'm going to check that if this is counting, no, this is not. If this is counting, no, this is not. If this is counting, yes, it is. It's like loop one is equals to loop one plus one. Like for example, count is equals to count plus one. So this is going to be settled as my counting. The second one is finding an average, and finding an average is right here. That means that the formula for average is the sum of values divided by the number of components. So you can see that you have three values right here, A1, A2, A3, and they are divided by 3. So this is, you have an average. Then we have in totaling, and totaling, I cannot find any statement of totaling right here that is taking a total of all. The fourth one says that using a conditional statement. I have discussed with you that the example of conditional statements are if, then, else, and if, and you can see that if loop is right here, this is going to be your conditional statement. Then using a procedure. You know it already that whenever I'm using a procedure, I can call that procedure so that it can be used into my program again. So this is going to be the answer for this. Do you have any questions in this?
नो सर.
Now, question number B. Question number B says that there is a 1D array. There is a one-dimensional array. I have already discussed with you that array means that it is a list of items. That basically means I have a list of items and the name of that list is temperature. That list is having 25 elements starting at the value 1. That means that I have an array or you can say a list The name of the list is temperature, and it has values that are starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, and it is going until the 25th value, right? Just after that, the question says that it holds values that ranges between -20 and 100 inclusive. Now, this basically means that I have a list of 25 items that are starting from 1, and within those 25 items, I have the values that are starting from -20 and ending at 100. Inclusive means that the values are into within this range. इंक्लूसिव का मतलब ये है कि वैल्यूज आपके पास इसी रेंज के अंदर मौजूद हैं, -20 से लेके 100 तक. अगर एक्सक्लूसिव हुआ तो वो आउट होगा. Now, the question says that I need to write a pseudocode algorithm using a single loop to find the lowest value in the array and output the result only once. You need to understand that the question says that I need to use a single loop. Single loop means that I will be using if, then, else, and if. And I do not need to use any sort of repeat until, because this is going to be a single loop. So, are you clear with the question?
यस सर. सर इसमें लीनियर सर्च यूज होगा?
नो, इसमें लीनियर सर्च यूज नहीं होगा. इसके अंदर हमें सिर्फ मिनिमम वैल्यू कैलकुलेट करनी है, लोएस्ट वैल्यू करनी है. मैंने आपको अपनी क्लास में पढ़ाया था मैक्सिमम और मिनिमम. उसके अंदर से
यस.
मैक्सिमम हटा दो, सिर्फ मिनिमम को ध्यान में लाओ, बस वो करना है. So for completing this, first of all, the rules that I discussed with you for maximum and minimum is that maximum is declared as the minimum and minimum is declared as the highest. But right here, I am only discussing with you minimum. The question does not say that I need to write in terms of a maximum. तो maximum को मैं हटा दूंगा. मैं सवाल अपना स्टार्ट करूंगा इनिशियलाइजेशन से. पहले मिनिमम वैल्यू को मैंने अपने पास करा दिया 100. उसके बाद I added a loop for count and how much the count I want to be. It is already given into the question that I am using 25 elements. So the count is going to be for count 1 to 25. Now I need to apply the loop. The name of the array is temperature. So I can write here that the name of the array is temperature and write into temperature the name of the unique values that I have taken as a variable is count. So that means that you have an array right here, and this is basically your count going on the right hand side, and right here you are going to have the values. So I'm writing here that if temperature count, that if whatever the value of temperature is in your series of count is less than your minimum value is right here 100, then what you need to do is you need to have the minimum value set as your temperature and whatever the value is of your count. And if next count, and at last I have to output the results because the question said that you need to output the results. So output with a statement, the lowest temperature is, and then you have to add a minimum right here. Now I'm solving question number 4. Question number 4 says that there is an algorithm that is written in a pseudocode to allow the name of 50 cities and their countries to be entered into a 2D array, which means that I have a two-dimensional list. The contents of the array are then out. Okay, now I have this piece of code right here, and what I need to do is I need to identify four errors, and then I need to write that what should be the correction is. So for finding errors, I'm going to start with the first line of this that says that declare city array 1 out of 50, 1 out of 2 of Boolean. Now, the first error in this, so I am going to write it right here that error 1 is in your line number 1 that says that declare city array out of 150 out of 1 2 of your data type Boolean. Now, what is going to be the correction of that? First of all, it can never be in Boolean. The name of the cities, they are always different. They can never be in a Boolean. And they have not added here those semicolon. So the declaration is wrong. I taught you in the class that how you can declare a variable. So you can do that by writing it. Correction is declare city, then semicolon. This is important for declaration. The name of the array, then you need to write that it has numbers from 1 till 50 and 1 till 2 because it is a two-dimensional array. And since it is the name of the cities, this is going to be a string. This is the first error that we have identified. Now let's move on to the second area to check that if I have errors or not. Declare city integer. Okay, you are correct. Declare out. Okay, count 1. Okay, now the loop that is being started in line number 5, it is supposed to be ended with an AND statement. But you can see that they have applied until here, and until is only and only applied when you have the value of repeat. So that means that there is another error in your line number 5. There is another error in line number 5 that says that if. So how can I correct that? I can correct that by writing it that line number 5 should be a repeat. So the loop is going to be completed. Now let's move on to the second last errors of that. Output enter the name of the city. Okay. Then in line number 7, you can see that it says that input city count 2. Input city count 2. Now the question is that it is also entering the value in the second row, and again it is entering the same value in the second row. Both of the values cannot be entered into the same row. Like one is going to be added into one row, then I'm going to add the one in a second row because this is our 2D array. So your error number 3 is going to be of in line number 7 that states that input city count wait, it says that input city count 2, and the correction of this is has to be input city count comma 1. Now this is also correct. Now I need to
सर
find
वन
the
क्यों लिखा हमने
जी
वन क्यों लिखा हमने
जी
वन क्यों लिखा हमने
बेटा
काउंट
इस
वन
वजह से लिखा है क्योंकि यहाँ पे भी 2 लिखा हुआ है, यहाँ पे भी 2 लिखा हुआ है। आपके पास जो एरे है, आप उसमें सेम जगह पे हमेशा डेटा थोड़ी स्टोर करते हो। आप उसमें हमेशा आपके पास 2D एरे है, जिसके अंदर आपके पास जो है 1 से लेके 50 तक इस तरह से है, 1 से लेके 50 तक है, और फिर आपके पास दो रिकॉर्ड रॉज हैं यहाँ पे, 1 यहाँ पे, 2 यहाँ पे। अब सवाल में हुआ ये है कि वो सारा डेटा इसी में स्टोर कर रहा है, 1 में तो कर ही नहीं रहा, इस वजह से 1 किया है कि पहले 1 में करे फिर 2 में करे। 2D एरे का स्ट्रक्चर याद है बुक में से?
जी
एक दफा ओपन करके देखना तो रिमाइंड हो जाएगा। इसके बाद बेटा लास्ट एरर वी नीड टू फाइंड, ये भी सही है, ये भी सही है। अब लाइन नंबर 10 में कह रहा है काउंट इज इक्वल्स टू काउंट प्लस 1 until count is equals to 50. Now this is going to create an error right here. Until count is 50. So what is basically happening is that count is starting from 1 and ending at 50. So if it is starting from 1 and ending at 50, it makes 49 values, whereas the name of the cities are 50. So I'm going to change it right here. I'm going to name it as line number 11. The error is until count is equals to 50. 1 से 50 तक तो 49 वैल्यूज हो जाएंगी ना, तो मैं इसको आपके पास करूंगा until the value of your count is less than 50. Do you have any confusion still here?
सर, जो 8 लाइन है उसमें लिखा हुआ है एंटर द नेम ऑफ योर कंट्री, तो इनपुट में भी तो कंट्री आएगा, उसमें सिटी लिखा हुआ है।
Additionally, means that right now you have secured the 4 marks, but if you want to have another error find out, you can check the 12th value. It says that for out 1 to 1. This is supposed to be for out 1 to 50. But I am not writing this because we are done with it. Now, what you need to do in the B part is then right here you need to describe the changes you should make to the corrected algorithm to allow the name of a country to be input and display only stored cities from that country. Now, you right here, you do not need to write an algorithm. You just need to define that how can you do that. So basically, you need to keep in mind the code that I have explained you right here. And the question now says that you need to describe the changes that you should be making to allow the name of a country to be input and display only the stored cities from that country. You need to write here for 5 marks. So this is going to be first of all, I'm going to add an input prompt to ask which country you want to search. Like, first of all, I'm going to ask that which country you want to search and where I'm going to add this. I think that I should be adding this right here between line number 11 to 12. Between line 11 to 12. We can use a new variable for the input, and you can name it anyone, any variable. Then we can add an if statement to check if the country entered matches the array or not. ये ढूंढना है कि जो नाम हमने ढूंढ डाला है वो हमारी एरे में मिल रहा है या नहीं. It's supposed to be in between lines 12 and 13 and so on. You can end it right here that if search is successful, that means that that list, that country is in the list. Allow the output, and if it does not, क्या होगा अगर नहीं किया, then check the next element. अगर उस लिस्ट के अंदर मौजूद है तो ठीक है. सबसे पहले आपने राइट इनटू दिस यू नीड टू ऐड एन इनपुट prompt to ask that which country you want to search. Then you can use a new variable for the input. Then you can add an if statement to check that if current country matches the country that you are searching or not. You can also place this in between line 12 and 13. If it matches, then allow the input in line number 13. आप लाइन नंबर 13 के अंदर इसको आउटपुट करा दो, और अगर नहीं हो रहा तो नेक्स्ट एलिमेंट चेक कर लो. अलाउ द आउटपुट इन लाइन 13, यहाँ लिख रहा हूँ छोटा सा. This is it for this part. You do not needed to write the algorithm. You were asked to define it. So do you have any confusions in this?